Hi, I'm Debbie Kurup, and I play the role Star in the Cher Show. And the Cher Show is a theatrical representation of Cher's life story. And we have three Chers. We have Babe, played by Millie O'Connell, Lady, played by Danielle Steers, and I play Star. And we basically represent different eras of Cher's life. So Millie is kind of concentrating around about the early 60s. Danielle takes over mid 60s to early 70s. And my character Star takes over the mid 70s into the 80s, 90s to present day.
And obviously it's Cher, but what first attracted you to the show?
Well, I had heard about the show because I knew it was on Broadway. But to be honest, it was never, ever really on my radar. And when I got the call from the casting director, Will, I kind of thought he was like having a joke. I thought, me, Cher, you want to see me for the role of Cher? What? I never really thought that that was something I would be seen as. You know, I was at the time playing Queen Tuya in The Prince of Egypt. And, you know, very, very different. I mean, I've played a multitude of roles over my career, but at the same time, what I was in at the time was very, very different to what this is. So, you know, and the industry can have a way of kind of pigeonholing you, but this role seemed to come out of nowhere in a way. So when I got the call, I was like, are you sure you've got the right person? But actually, having received the material and doing my research, I actually thought, oh, wow, this could be a really interesting fit. And then going in and meeting Arlene and having a little sing of the material just made me realize that this actually was really, really cool. And this is a job that I really, really wanted to do and a role that I really wanted to tackle. So, the rest is history.
And obviously, as you say, you'd heard about it on Broadway and stuff, but did you, like, when you've got the part, do you then kind of have to go onto YouTube and watch Cher videos and all those things?
Oh my goodness, of course. Yeah. This was another funny thing. I was cast quite late in the day. So I think most of the cast had been already put into place and assembled. Yeah. And I kind of probably was one of the last people to join. So it was very interesting that I had to then go, oh, rehearsals start in a few weeks' time. Now I've got to find out who I am and who this woman is and how I'm going to fit into the whole thing. So, I spent hours upon hours of YouTube research and, you know, listening to her music and trying to perfect her mannerisms and her physicalities and, you know, getting my voice to go down because I'm a mezzo soprano. So I had to, you know, really work on my voice to get that lower resonance. There was a lot of work went in before rehearsals started, and then obviously during rehearsals as well. And to be honest with you, it still is a work in progress. I don't ever want to be the kind of actor that is comfortable with where I'm at. I always want to be striving for more, striving for perfection. I want to keep working. So I'm always going back to the drawing board and I'm watching videos again and go, oh yeah, I'm not quite getting that. Let me try that again. And like, it is something for me that will continue to develop.
And obviously, as you mentioned, you kind of share the journey of the character. How kind of did that kind of work in rehearsals? Because obviously when you've come out like the Prince of Egypt, where you're playing a role kind of like that, and you're coming into a role where you come almost sharing the role, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting because in the Prince of Egypt, the role of Queen Tuya was very isolated. You know, I had my track and I did, you know, other than when I was on stage interacting with people, because of the way the show is structured, my track was very isolated. So I had long periods of time in the dressing room on my own. So to go from that show, which although was huge and grand and so many people in it, I did have those moments of feeling quite isolated, to coming into this show where we kind of are like this all the time and I don't leave the stage, and it's, you know, unless I'm doing a ridiculously quick costume change, it's completely different. It's a different way of kind of approaching a show, and I love the camaraderie. I really do. I love the fact that we have a real giggle on stage, you know. It's such a unique concept using the three of us to play the same character. And I really enjoy it because I love, you know, there's a real sense of like girl power and and female empowerment, full stop. And having the three of us being able to kind of work together to deliver the same character, but in our own unique way, is very interesting and very fulfilling.
Yeah, and kind of how did you kind of like mold that then? Because obviously you all kind of bring your own qualities and different, obviously it's different stages of her life, but how do you kind of like create that?
Well, one of the best ways that we do, it's a little ritual we have every night. And we basically run our first scene in the wings just before we go on. But, you know, I'm a big fan of like the Meisner technique, and we sort of adopt some of the Meisner principles in our reading of the scene. And in that respect, we're just looking at each other's behavior. And by doing that, what we're doing is we're synergizing and we're becoming the same person. So we're feeding off each other's energies. And that seems to really set us up for the show. You know, when I first suggested it to the girls, I don't know if they were immediately on board with the idea, but I think they really enjoy it now, because every day is different, because that's the whole point of Meisner, is that you're in the moment. Yeah. And that is such a vital and useful technique for an actor to use when they are on stage, so that it is real, it's in the moment, it's impulsive, it's reactive. And by doing that little exercise each day, it just gets us set up. And so, yeah, we have a real laugh doing that.
Amazing. And obviously you're quite a few months into the tour now. So kind of, how kind of have you kind of grown? Like you say, obviously you say about the constant wanting to develop and kind of grow the part, but how kind of have you kind of been with that journey?
Yeah, I really feel like we're at a really good place now, because we still have the energy and enthusiasm, but at the same time, I feel like we've been able to channel our energy, because this is the thing, we have such a short rehearsal period. So we're trying to, you know, get to that level very, very quickly. And so by doing that, you have to kind of really push it to, in a way, you have to push it too far, and so that you know where the balance is. And by the time we got to our first preview, I don't quite think we had got the balance, but that's because we only had a short rehearsal time and we had 2 previews before we opened. So, you know, we were up against it. So in a way, the first few weeks of the tour were still almost like our rehearsal, and where we were still trying things out, finding our feet and trying to find that balance. And now I feel like we've really settled, and our versions of Cher have really started to just blend together, but in a really unforced way. So I just feel like we're at a really good point right now. So hopefully that will continue as the tour goes on.
I'm sure it will. Obviously, I know you kind of seen on your guys' social media, like you've just been in Glasgow, haven't you? And kind of like the energy and kind of, I know you guys were all kind of loving how kind of the audiences were, but does that kind of change, like not a performance, but does that kind of change the energy on the stage if the audience is kind of ramped up?
Oh, of course. Yeah, it does give you a real buzz, you know, when, for example, you know, because our script is funny. It's full of lovely, funny lines, especially because Cher she's known for her one-liners, you know, the one-liners that put people down really quickly and, you know, in a very light-hearted way. And so we've got lots of those in the script. And it's so lovely when you have an audience that responds to every single one, like they did in Glasgow. And, you know, there are some venues we've been to where you can tell that they find things funny, but they're just not vocalizing their laughter. So for us, it can be a little bit disheartening if you have an audience like that, but it makes the payoff is so amazing when you do get an audience like we had in Glasgow, where they are wild and they literally are howling at everything. It just makes you feel really funny.
Amazing. But obviously Cher, she's still alive and everything. Is there a pressure then when you're kind of doing that kind of for people who obviously are quite aware of her and her mannerisms and everything?
Yes, absolutely. You know, what's very interesting, you know, there have been, as you know, many, many musicals that use the back catalogue of an artist that is around. But the thing is, like, say, I'll use an example, say Sunny Afternoon, or, you know, or The Beautiful, which is the Carole King musical. Now, these personas, yes, of course, they're in the public eye, they're famous, but I guess in a way that the scrutiny is not as much as what we have on us. And the reason being is that as much as Carole King is huge and incredible, she's not in the public eye as much as someone like Cher. Cher is a global icon. You know, she's a feminist icon, she's a gay icon, she's a fashion icon, she's a humanitarian. She is, even just last week, she was on she was at Paris Fashion Week on the runway. You know, everybody loves Cher and everybody knows her, and she almost is like this, I don't know, it's probably the reason why she's parodied so much, is because she is a very unique character. And so in that respect, there is a lot more scrutiny on us. So I feel like we have a harder job. And what we need to do is find the right balance between, you know, we're not impressionists. That's not our job. We're actors. So we need to not be a caricature of the woman, but at the same time, we need to be recognizable enough so that people instantly go, that is a representation of Cher. So it has been really interesting, this journey, because, you know, she is so famous. There's no getting away from the fact that she is probably one of the most famous women on the planet. So it's an interesting question, and there have been challenges, but I do feel like, you know, it's all coming together, which is amazing, and it feels good. It really does. It really feels good. It feels like the audience are really with us, and they totally buy into us, and, you know, they walk away with a real appreciation of Cher and what she has been through in her life. And that is my goal, because as an actor, I am telling a story. The narrative is so important to me. So if you go away knowing all about Cher's life and feeling and having gone on a journey with all of your emotions being evoked, then I know that I'm doing my job properly. So
yes, and I know you've kind of touched it already, the kind of pre-show ritual, but what is it for you kind of that gets you into the character, I suppose? I know I talked to Millie and she said it was kind of the wig and the costume, but what kind of like gets you from you into Cher?
Well, most definitely because the wig, the look is so iconic, isn't it? So by putting the wig on, it really does help. But I have a slight challenge in the fact that I don't start the show in a wig. I start the show in a stocking cap. So, you know, that's another challenge. It's like, until I get the wig on in the first scene, which is in just before turn back time, once the wig goes on, then I really feel like Cher. So the first little chunk before the wig goes on, it's like, yes, I'm being Cher, but I can see the audience are looking at me like, what's going on here? But I love that. I kind of love that, because it makes her vulnerable, because, you know, it is a private moment in her dressing room that the audience are privy to. So we want to showcase how, in the privacy of your own dressing room, like I'm in the dressing room right now, you are in, you know, you're in private. You can be you without the makeup, without the wigs, without the costumes, and you can be as vulnerable as you want to be. And that's why I love the show starting the way it does, because we see her at her most vulnerable. And in that respect, the show does a complete 360, because at the end of the show, when she's back in the dressing room with her mother, she's still in that vulnerable place. Even though you've seen her become this megastar, we go back to that same moment where you see she's a frightened little girl underneath it all, like we all are. You know, we're all frightened kids underneath there. You know, we can be as successful as we want to be, but ultimately we're all vulnerable. We all, you know, have insecurities to some extent. And we all just need to have a hug, really, sometimes, don't we? And that's what I love about this show, you know.
Yes, and obviously the music is iconic.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't have to be one you sing necessarily, but do you have a favourite Cher song?
Do you know what I do? Well, that's actually really tough, because doing this show, I've rediscovered a lot of the Cher songs and just remembered how epic they all are and how wonderful they all are. But I'm going to say the song that got me hooked onto Cher when I was a kid. I was about 8, and my sister had the Heart of Stone album on a cassette tape. This is how long ago it was, back in the 80s. And she used to play it all the time. And my favorite song on the album was Just Like Jesse James. And I'm thrilled that I get to sing that in the show, because it really is just it's a bit of a moment for me, and it's such a great moment in the show as well. It's the audience really love it. I think in that part of the storytelling, they're really behind Cher. They want her to pick herself up after the divorce from Sonny, and they're really behind her. They want her to move on with her life and get with Greg. And there is a real energy, and the audience just go wild, because it's quite a sexy number, and they just really love it. So yeah, it's a really special moment, that.
Yes, and if you were put in a position like this, where you were doing an interview, if you could ask Cher any question, what would you ask her?
Oh my goodness, if I could ask her a question. That's a really good question. I guess it would be, what I resonate, how I resonate with Cher is this sense that she is a real survivor, and I've been through a lot in my life and career, and there are, things that happen during the show that resonate with me massively, especially being a single mum for a certain period of time in my life, as Cher was in her life as well. And I guess I would just say, I had moments when I was a single mum of just thinking, how do I keep going? How? And I see that with Cher, and I guess it's probably, I would just ask her, like, in your darkest moments, what was it that kept you going? Because I know what kept me going was clearly my child, and just, having to be pragmatic about life and etc. But I want to know how dark things got for her, because, we are representing her life here, but it's musical theatre at the same time. So we don't want to go too dark. There's a moment we touch on it at the end of Act 1 where she mentions being slightly suicidal, but we don't explore that any further. And so I want to know, how suicidal could she have been? Was she, or is that slightly more artistic license that we're using? I want to know about those dark moments, because that makes me tick as an actor, getting to the real nitty gritty of pain and feeling and suffering, and I'd want to explore that further, I think.
Yes, this next question actually maybe Grosvenor wrote it, but if you could turn back time yourself and play one of the roles you've played previously, which one would you choose to revisit?
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. That's so hard, Mark. There's so many. I'm very lucky. I've played some incredible roles. I probably want to revisit most of them, to be honest. Mrs. Nielsen in Girl from the North Country. That was such an incredible play / musical. It had such heart, and being an original company member was very, very special. We really did create that show as a unit. So I going back to Mrs. Nielsen would be wonderful, I think. Yeah.
That's a good show. I'm very much love that show. The music in that is so well, like Cher Show.
Yeah.
So good. I have some more fun general questions to end this on for you.
Sure.
What was the first piece of theatre that you saw in your life that you remember having an impact on you?
Very easy. Starlight Express. And the reason I remember that is because up until the moment I saw that, I think I was about 11. I was dancing. I went to dance classes, but I didn't ever really realize that might be a calling for me until I saw Starlight Express. And I watched everybody whizzing around me on their skates and listened to the music and the bright lights and the colorful costumes. And I remember being hooked. It was like I came out of there in a trance, and I said to my mum and dad, I have to be on the stage. I have to tell stories. I want to be an actor. I want to be a singer. I want to be a performer. So it was Starlight Express when I was about 11 years old.
Amazing. And do you have a favorite piece of theatre that you've seen to date?
That I've seen? Oh, well, I mean, so many amazing. I see a lot of plays, and I loved Yerma. That was at the Young Vic. Billy Piper, I thought, was incredible. But musical theatre wise, there's so much. I mean, I live for theatre, so everything I see, and that's another thing, is like I'm very positive as a person. So when I go to a show, I don't go like some actors do and annihilate them. Like I like to go and be really positive and pick out all the positive parts from what I've seen, and take them in and just be enriched by them. So yeah, I love theatre. I just love theatre. I mean, I guess the last show I saw, which is so much fun, is Back to the Future, and it's just a brilliant night out. And yeah, that is a really cool piece of theatre, but it's not my favorite, but that was the last one. So I couldn't possibly tell you my favorite, because that would be like I don't know, choosing a child or something.
Yes, it's an impossible question to there, but I know my top one. This is more of a deep question. You kind of just touched on a bit, but simply, what does theatre mean to you?
Theatre it's like my salvation. I find it's my safe place. It's also my creative space. It's my place. It's a place where I feel I can connect and communicate. And ultimately, theatre is all about a shared experience. And what better than to bring people together to tell a story? We've been telling stories for centuries and centuries and centuries. So, you know, the fact that we're still doing it, but better than ever now, and provoking thought and making people feel, is just so amazing. And in these dark times, you know, coming out of the pandemic, what was the one thing that everybody was desperate for? It was theatre, because it's not just being entertained. It's about feeling. It's about communicating, connecting. It's about that shared experience. There's nothing like theatre. There really is nothing like theatre. So it's my life. Theatre is my life.
Yeah. And to wrap it all up, final question for you. Simple one. Why should anyone come and see the Cher Show?
The Cher Show is an incredible night out full of 35 absolutely iconic Cher songs, which you will know. Yes. Plus, you go on an incredible journey through Cher's life, which is quite a life, and she is quite a woman.
And you are quite sensational in it.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
So the Cher Show is on tour until late March 2023. So
that's right.
To come. I'll put a link below so everyone can come.